My name is Naomi, 32 years old, and I'm currently sitting alone on a flight to Santorini, Greece, sipping champagne in first class. 2 weeks ago, my family announced they were changing our meticulously planned Hawaii vacation that took me 8 months to organize into a Disney World trip for my golden sister Madison and her 3 kids. They thought I would just accept it like I always did for the past 15 years. But this time, I had my own secret escape plan that would change everything. Before I share how I finally broke free from being my family's personal ATM and doormat, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Please hit that like button and subscribe to hear about the vacation hijacking that became my liberation story. 8 months before this moment on the plane, I had started planning what I thought would be the perfect family vacation to Hawaii. After working 60-hour weeks for 6 consecutive months, I had managed to save $15,000 specifically for this trip. Every overtime shift, every weekend project, every sacrificed lunch break had been worth it, because this was going to be the vacation where my family would finally see me as more than just their financial safety net. I spent countless evenings researching the perfect accommodations, comparing hundreds of hotels before settling on the Four Seasons Maui. The resort offered everything our diverse family group would need, from kids' clubs for my nieces and nephew to spa services for my mother Patricia. I booked ocean view suites, ensuring everyone would wake up to the magnificent Pacific coastline. The reservation alone required a $5,000 non-refundable deposit, which I paid without hesitation. My research extended far beyond just accommodation. I studied every possible activity Maui had to offer, creating detailed spreadsheets comparing tour operators, reading thousands of reviews, and cross-referencing prices. I booked a private helicopter tour over the volcanic landscapes, reserved spots on a prestigious snorkeling expedition to Molokini Crater, and secured sunset dinner cruises that promised unforgettable views. Each reservation was carefully timed to avoid overlaps, accounting for travel time between locations, and even factoring in nap schedules for Madison's youngest child. I created a comprehensive Google document spanning 40 pages, complete with embedded maps, restaurant menus, and activity descriptions. The itinerary was color-coded by family member, with special attention paid to dietary restrictions and physical limitations. I had even researched the best local pharmacies in case anyone forgot medication, and identified the nearest urgent care facilities for any potential emergencies. The family members who would be joining this carefully orchestrated paradise included my mother Patricia, 58 years old and recently retired from her position as a school administrator. She had always been the matriarch who decided family dynamics, and her preference for my younger sister Madison had been evident since we were children. Every report card, every achievement, every milestone of mine was met with polite acknowledgement, while Madison's mere existence seemed to warrant celebration. My father, Stephen, 60 years old, was the silent enabler in our family ecosystem. A middle manager at an insurance company, he had perfected the art of avoiding conflict by agreeing with whatever mother decided. His favorite phrase, "whatever makes your mother happy," had become the soundtrack to my childhood and adult life. He never actively participated in the favoritism, but his silence spoke volumes about where his priorities lay. Madison, my 29-year-old sister, had been crowned the family's golden child from birth. Her blonde curls and blue eyes had earned her the nickname, "Our Little Angel," while my dark hair and serious demeanor had labeled me the responsible one. She had 3 children now, ages 7, 5, and 3 each, one adding another layer to her victim narrative since her divorce 2 years ago. The divorce, which she initiated after meeting someone new who ultimately didn't work out, had somehow been reframed as a tragedy that happened to her, rather than a choice she made. Connor, my 35-year-old brother, occupied a neutral zone in our family hierarchy. As the eldest and only son, he had certain privileges, but also managed to maintain distance from the daily drama. He worked as a software engineer in Seattle, conveniently far enough to avoid most family obligations, but close enough to appear for major holidays. His wife Rachel had learned early to stay out of family dynamics, a wisdom I envied. Over the past 5 years, I had given Madison approximately $50,000 in various forms of support. There were the emergency car repairs that somehow occurred monthly, the rent assistance when she couldn't make ends meet, despite receiving substantial alimony, the children's medical bills that insurance supposedly didn't cover, and countless grocery runs that I was expected to fund. I kept a detailed spreadsheet of every transaction, though I never expected repayment. It was simply my way of tracking how much of my life was being siphoned away. 3 years ago, I had planned a solo trip to Japan, my dream destination since college. 2 weeks before departure, Madison called crying about needing emergency childcare for a job interview. The interview was supposedly for a position that would change everything, make her financially independent. I canceled my non-refundable trip, losing $3,000 to watch her kids for 2 weeks. She didn't get the job, and I later discovered through social media that she had actually spent those 2 weeks on a cruise with her new boyfriend. The pattern continued relentlessly. I missed my 5-year work anniversary celebration because Madison needed someone to take her kids to various appointments. I turned down a promotion that would have required occasional travel because the family insisted Madison needed stable support. My emergency fund of $10,000 was depleted when Madison's car broke down, then her washing machine, then her roof leaked, all within 3 months. Each crisis was presented as potentially catastrophic, with Mother calling to remind me that family helps family. For the Hawaii trip, I had gone above and beyond in my preparations. I spent $2,000 on new vacation outfits for everyone, ensuring the kids had proper swim gear, sun protection clothing, and comfortable walking shoes. Mother received a new designer beach cover-up she had admired online. Madison got 3 new sundresses that would photograph well for her Instagram. Even Father got new golf shorts and moisture-wicking shirts for the humid climate. I had pre-booked spa treatments for Mother at the resort's award-winning facility, knowing she would never splurge on herself, but would enjoy the pampering. For the kids, I had arranged a private surfing lesson with an instructor who specialized in teaching young children, along with a traditional luau experience that included fire dancing and interactive cultural activities. Every detail was considered, from motion sickness medication for the boat trips to waterproof phone cases for everyone. The financial investment went far beyond the visible expenses. I had purchased comprehensive travel insurance for the entire group, knowing Madison would never think to protect the investment. I upgraded our rental vehicles to ensure car seats and safety features. I even hired a local photographer for a sunset family portrait session on the beach, something I knew Mother had always dreamed of but would never arrange herself. My spreadsheet showed total trip expenses approaching $25,000 when including the pre-trip purchases, deposits, and reservations. This represented nearly half my annual take-home salary as a marketing manager, but I justified it as a once-in-a-lifetime experience that would finally show my family that I could provide something valuable beyond just money. I imagined Mother finally being proud, Madison grateful, and Father actually acknowledging my efforts. The week before the trip, I had started receiving confirmation emails from various tour operators. Each one increased my excitement. The helicopter tour company sent a video preview of the sights we would see. The snorkeling expedition shared photos from recent trips showing sea turtles and tropical fish. The resort confirmed our suite upgrades and spa appointments. Everything was falling perfectly into place. I had even created welcome bags for everyone filled with Hawaiian treats, reef-safe sunscreen, and personalized items. Madison's kids each got a disposable underwater camera to document their adventures. Connor and Rachel received a bottle of local rum. Mother got a beautiful orchid lei that would be waiting in her suite. These touches, I believed, would show how much thought and care I had invested in making this trip special for everyone. My vacation requests at work had been submitted 6 months in advance. I had trained my replacement, documented all my processes, and ensured no projects would suffer in my absence. My own apartment was cleaned, plants arranged to be watered by a neighbor, mail held at the post office. Every detail of my life had been organized around these 2 weeks in paradise. Looking back now, the signs were always there. Madison had been unusually interested in the trip details, asking specific questions about cancellation policies and change fees. Mother had made several comments about how Hawaii might be too adventurous for the children. Father had mentioned something about theme parks being more family-friendly than beaches. But I had dismissed these hints, too focused on my vision of the perfect family vacation, to see the storm brewing. 2 weeks before our scheduled departure to Hawaii, Mother called for an emergency family meeting at her house. The timing seemed odd since we had just confirmed final details the previous weekend, but she insisted it was important, and everyone needed to attend. I drove over after work exhausted from a particularly challenging day, but curious about what could be so urgent. The living room was already full when I arrived. Madison sat on the couch, her 3 children surprisingly absent for such an important gathering. She wore what I recognized as her manipulation outfit, a modest floral dress that made her look particularly vulnerable and maternal. Connor participated via video call from Seattle, his expression already suggesting he knew something I didn't. Mother stood by the fireplace in her authoritative stance, the one she used when announcing decisions rather than discussing options. "Naomi, sit down, dear." Mother began, her tone syrupy sweet, in the way that always preceded something unpleasant. "We need to discuss some changes to the vacation plans." I sat in the armchair across from Madison, my stomach already tightening with familiar dread. Father occupied his usual recliner newspaper folded in his lap, eyes avoiding mine. After much consideration and family discussion, Mother continued emphasizing family in a way that made it clear I hadn't been part of these discussions. "We've decided that Hawaii isn't the best choice for this year's vacation." The words hit me like physical blows. I felt my carefully constructed vision of paradise beginning to crumble. "What do you mean everything is booked? I've put down deposits. The confirmation emails are all sent." Madison shifted forward, her practiced, concerned expression in place. "Naomi, I'm so grateful for all the work you've done, but I've been doing research about Hawaii with young children. The ocean currents are dangerous. The sun exposure is extreme. The time change would completely disrupt their schedules. As a mother, I just can't take those risks with my babies." The irony of Madison suddenly becoming a concerned parent when she regularly left the kids with whoever would watch them wasn't lost on me. Last month, she had dropped them at my apartment for an entire weekend with 2 hours' notice because she needed me time. Mother picked up the narrative seamlessly. "Madison found the most wonderful alternative. Disney World has a special package deal right now. It's perfect for the children, much safer and honestly more appropriate for a family vacation. The kids deserve to experience the magic of Disney." "When did Madison find this?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the rage building in my chest. "And when were you planning to discuss this with me before making a decision?" "Oh, honey," Madison said, reaching for her phone. "I've been researching for weeks. Look, I've already mapped out the perfect Disney experience." She showed me her screen, revealing detailed Disney plans that would have taken considerable time to create. This wasn't a sudden decision. Connor's voice crackled through the laptop. "They already booked it, Naomi." The room went silent. Mother shot Connor a sharp look through the screen while Madison suddenly became very interested in her manicure. "What do you mean, already booked?" I asked, though the sinking feeling in my stomach already knew the answer. Father finally spoke, not looking up from his lap. "Your mother used the credit card information from the Hawaii deposits to secure the Disney reservations. The money was already allocated for vacation, so it made sense to transfer it." The casualness with which he delivered this information, as if stealing $5,000 of my deposits, was a simple administrative decision, left me momentarily speechless. They had accessed my booking information, canceled my reservations, and used my money to book their preferred vacation without even a courtesy conversation. "The Disney package is actually more expensive than what you budgeted," Mother added, as if this was helpful information. "So we'll need you to transfer another $3,000 to cover the park tickets and character dining experiences. Madison found the most amazing character breakfast where the kids can meet all the princesses." Madison pulled out a folder she had apparently prepared for this moment. "I've organized everything. We'll stay at the Grand Floridian, it's right on the monorail line. I've scheduled character meet and greets, booked the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique for Emma, and reserved spots for the Halloween party. The kids are going to be so happy," she had already told the children. That's why they weren't here. They were probably at home picking out costumes for a Disney trip they already knew about, while I sat here being informed my 8 months of planning had been discarded like trash. "Hawaii is already paid for," I managed to say. "The helicopter tour, the snorkeling, everything is non-refundable at this point." Mother waved dismissively. Those activity companies will understand if you explain it's for children. Everyone knows Disney is more important for kids than some fish and volcanoes. Besides, you don't have children, Naomi. You don't understand what it's like to see their faces light up with Disney magic. There it was, the familiar weapon. My childlessness thrown at me like evidence of my inability to understand real love or sacrifice. Never mind that I had sacrificed more for Madison's children than their own father, who paid minimal child support and saw them twice a month. Madison has been through so much, Mother continued, launching into the familiar narrative. The divorce, raising 3 kids alone, struggling financially. She deserves this magical experience with her babies. You're successful, independent, you can take a Hawaiian vacation anytime. But these children only get one childhood. The manipulation was multi-layered and expertly crafted. Guilt about Madison's situation, minimization of my contributions, dismissal of my efforts, and the implication that I was selfish for even questioning this hijacking. Connor tried to interject. Maybe we could do both. A few days in Disney and then Hawaii. That's financially irresponsible, Mother said sharply. Naomi understands the importance of family. She's always been so generous, haven't you, dear? The question was a trap. Say yes and accept this theft graciously. Say no and be labeled selfish, ruining the children's happiness. I had been placed in this position so many times I could map the emotional manipulation with scientific precision. Madison's eyes welled with perfectly timed tears. I just wanted something special for my babies. They've been through so much with the divorce. Their father barely sees them. This would mean everything to them. But if Aunt Naomi doesn't want them to have this experience? She trailed off, letting the accusation hang. The kids have already made countdown calendars, she added, pulling out her phone to show photos. Indeed, there were 3 construction paper calendars with Disney stickers counting down to our departure date. They've been practicing their princess curtsies for weeks. Weeks. They had been planning this for weeks while I sent daily emails about Hawaii updates, while I bought them new swimsuits and beach toys, while I arranged child-friendly activities and restaurants. They had been deliberately deceiving me for weeks. I spent $2,000 on vacation clothes for everyone, I said weakly, knowing it wouldn't matter. Oh, those will work perfectly for Disney, Madison exclaimed as if this solved everything. The sundresses you bought me will be ideal for character dinners, and the kids' swimsuits will be perfect for the resort pools. Father cleared his throat. The decision has been made, Naomi. The Disney reservations are confirmed. We leave in 2 weeks as planned, just to a different destination. Your mother has worked very hard to make this adjustment smooth for everyone. My mother had worked hard. She had stolen my money and my plans, given them to Madison, and somehow she had worked hard. The gaslighting was so blatant, it would have been laughable if it wasn't my life being casually destroyed. I need the additional $3,000 by Friday, Mother said, already moving on as if my agreement was assumed. Madison has her heart set on the princess character dinner and those tickets sell out quickly. Oh, and we'll need you to handle the airport transportation since you're the most organized. The flight times have changed to accommodate the Orlando schedule. Connor's expression on the screen was unreadable. He knew this was wrong. I could see it in his eyes, but he wouldn't risk his position as the distant neutral party. Rachel had likely coached him to stay out of it. Wisdom I was beginning to appreciate more. I sat there surrounded by my family, feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. 32 years of this. 32 years of being the responsible one, the generous one, the understanding one. 32 years of my dreams and plans being sacrificed for Madison's wants disguised as needs. Well, Mother prompted. Aren't you going to say something? Madison has gone to enormous trouble to plan this magical experience for the family. Say something. What could I say that hadn't been dismissed, ignored, or turned against me 1,000 times before? What words could penetrate the fortress of favoritism they had built around Madison? I stood up slowly, my body feeling disconnected from my mind. I need to think about this, I said quietly. There's nothing to think about, Mother said firmly. It's done. We're going to Disney World, as a family. And you're going to make sure those children have the time of their lives, aren't you? I looked at each of them. Mother with her imperious certainty, Madison with her calculated tears, Father with his practiced avoidance, Connor through the screen with his protected distance. "I need to go," I said, gathering my purse. "Don't forget the 3,000 by Friday." Madison called out cheerfully, her tears miraculously dried. "Oh, and I made a Pinterest board of Disney outfits if you want to coordinate. We should all wear matching shirts for our Magic Kingdom Day." I walked out without responding, their voices following me about logistics and plans for a vacation that had replaced mine without a moment's consideration for my feelings, my effort, or my money. As I sat in my car in their driveway, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't go back inside to fight. Instead, I smiled. Because for the first time in 32 years, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And for the first time in 32 years, I wasn't going to tell them a damn thing about it. I drove home from my parents' house in complete silence, my mind surprisingly clear, despite what had just transpired. Instead of the familiar fog of disappointment and resignation that usually followed these family ambushes, I felt a strange sense of liberation brewing. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, a plan was already forming, precise and delicious in its simplicity. Once inside my apartment, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. First, I checked my Hawaii reservations. Despite what they claimed, most of them were still active. The resort was still confirmed, the helicopter tour still scheduled, the snorkeling expedition still booked. They had only managed to cancel about $2,000 worth of reservations, probably the ones that were easiest to find in my email. The rest, buried in various confirmation emails and travel apps, remained intact. I pulled up my financial spreadsheet, the one I had been maintaining for 5 years, documenting every dollar given to Madison. The total was actually $73,000, not the $50,000 I had estimated. $73,000 over 5 years, averaging over $14,000 annually. That was a car payment. That was investment money. That was my freedom systematically drained away one emergency at a time. Looking at my savings account, I had $25,000 remaining after the Hawaii bookings. It had taken me 10 years to save this amount, living frugally, driving a 10-year-old Honda Civic, shopping at discount stores, cooking every meal at home. Meanwhile, Madison drove a 2-year-old SUV I had co-signed for, wore designer clothes from her pre-divorce life, and posted Instagram photos from restaurants I couldn't afford. The decision crystallized in that moment. I wasn't going to cancel Hawaii. I wasn't going to give them another $3,000. I wasn't going to drive them to the airport for their Disney adventure. I was going to disappear. Over the next 2 days, I operated with military precision. I contacted the Hawaii resort directly, confirming my reservation was secure, and upgrading to the presidential suite using the money I was supposed to give Madison. I called each tour operator, verifying bookings and adding premium options. The basic snorkeling trip became a private yacht expedition. The group helicopter tour became a doors-off photography flight. Every experience was upgraded to its most luxurious option. But Hawaii was just the beginning. I had always dreamed of visiting Greece, specifically Santorini, with its white buildings and blue-domed churches. Within hours, I had booked a flight from Maui to Athens, then on to Santorini. A cave hotel with a private pool overlooking the caldera. Wine tours through ancient vineyards. A private sailing expedition to watch the sunset. 2 weeks in Greece following 2 weeks in Hawaii. A full month of freedom. The logistics required careful planning. I submitted a medical leave request at work, citing stress and exhaustion. My doctor, who had been warning me about my blood pressure and anxiety levels for years, provided the necessary documentation without question. HR approved a month of paid medical leave combined with my accumulated vacation time. I would be gone for 4 weeks with full pay and no questions asked. I arranged for a house sitter through a professional service, someone to water my plants and collect mail. I set up automatic bill payments for all utilities. I forwarded my work emails to an out-of-office message explaining my extended medical leave. Every loose end that could connect me to my regular life was carefully tied off. The true art came in maintaining the facade with my family. I sent Mother the $3,000 she demanded, knowing it would keep them from suspecting anything. I offered to buy Disney souvenirs for the kids, sent Madison links to Disney planning websites, even volunteered to drive them to the airport. Every interaction was perfectly normal, the devoted daughter and sister playing her assigned role flawlessly. Madison called multiple times with Disney updates, each call an exercise in manipulation disguised as excitement. "The kids made you a thank you card for making their Disney dreams come true," she gushed, sending a photo of crayon drawings. "Emma wants to know if Aunt Naomi will buy her a princess dress at the Bibbidi Bobbidi boutique. It's only $300. I agreed to everything. Yes, I would buy the princess dress. Yes, I would pay for the character dining. Yes, I would ensure everyone had Mickey Mouse ears with their names embroidered. My compliance was so complete that Mother actually called to praise my maturity in handling the situation. "I knew you would understand," she said warmly. "You've always been so good about putting family first. Madison is blessed to have a sister like you. The children will remember this forever." They certainly would, though not for the reasons she expected. I spent evenings researching solo travel, joining online communities of women who traveled alone. Their stories were revelations. Women who had left controlling families, who had chosen themselves, who had discovered that solitude was not loneliness, but freedom. I read about setting boundaries, recognizing emotional manipulation, breaking free from assigned roles. Each article and blog post reinforced my decision. I also dove deep into research about narcissistic family dynamics, finally putting names to patterns I had lived with for decades. Golden child and scapegoat, emotional parentification, financial abuse, gaslighting. The terminology gave structure to my experiences, validation that I wasn't crazy or selfish for feeling used. One website described something called the final straw moment, when the scapegoat finally recognizes their worth and stops participating in the family dysfunction. It usually came after a particularly egregious betrayal, something so blatant that even the fog of manipulation couldn't hide its cruelty. The Hawaii hijacking was my final straw. I found a therapist who offered video sessions and booked appointments for my trip. If I was going to break free, I wanted professional support to ensure I didn't get pulled back into old patterns. The therapist, Dr. Chen, specialized in family trauma and toxic relationships. Our first session, conducted 3 days before the trip, was validating beyond measure. "You're not responsible for your sister's life choices," she said simply. "You're not obligated to sacrifice your dreams for her comfort. And you're certainly not required to fund her lifestyle at the expense of your own well-being." These seemed like obvious statements, but hearing them from a professional felt like receiving permission I never knew I needed. I created a new email address and phone number that my family didn't know about. I would maintain my regular contacts until the moment of revelation, then switch to these new channels for anyone I wanted to maintain relationships with. Connor would get the new information if he proved trustworthy. Everyone else would have to earn it. The night before departure, I packed 2 suitcases with my best clothes, the ones I never wore, because they were too much for family events. Bold colors, interesting cuts, designer pieces I had bought on sale but hidden away. In Hawaii and Greece, I would dress like the woman I wanted to be, rather than the role I had been assigned. I also packed journals, books I had wanted to read for years, art supplies I had abandoned because Madison needed money for the kids' activities. This trip would be about rediscovering parts of myself that had been buried under decades of obligation. My apartment was clean to perfection, everything organized and labeled for my return. I wanted to come back to a space that reflected my new life, not the chaos my family usually left in their wake. I even bought new sheets and towels, small luxuries I had denied myself while funding Madison's needs. The morning of departure arrived gray and humid, typical August weather that made the promise of island paradise even sweeter. I loaded my car with hidden suitcases, placing them in the trunk under blankets. My family's luggage, which I had offered to transport, went in the back seat where they could see it. As I drove to Madison's apartment to collect her and the kids, I felt no guilt, no anxiety, no second thoughts. The plan was in motion, and for the first time in my life, I was choosing myself without apology or explanation. The woman who would have worried about their feelings, their reactions, their needs, had been left behind somewhere between the family meeting and this moment. Madison emerged from her apartment in chaos, as usual, children crying, bags half-packed, running 20 minutes late. "Naomi, thank God you're here. Can you finish packing while I get the kids ready? Oh, and I forgot to mention I need you to pay for the airport parking. My credit card is maxed out." I smiled. Helped pack, soothed children, paid for everything requested. The perfect sister. One last performance before the curtain fell. As we drove to pick up our parents, Madison chattered about Disney plans while the kids sang songs from Frozen in the back seat. She had no idea she was providing the soundtrack to my liberation. At my parents' house, Mother supervised the loading of their luggage with military precision, ensuring her cosmetics case was accessible. Father's medications were handy. She praised my organization, my reliability, my dedication to family. "What would we do without you, Naomi?" she asked rhetorically, never imagining she was about to find out. The drive to the airport was filled with Madison's excited chatter about Disney plans while her 3 children sang animated movie songs in the back seat. I navigated through traffic with practiced ease, my hidden suitcases tucked safely in the trunk, while their luggage dominated the visible space. Mother sat in the passenger seat listing last-minute instructions as if I hadn't been managing family logistics for over a decade. "Now remember, Naomi, you need to check us all in exactly 24 hours before the return flight," she instructed. "And don't forget to monitor the weather in Orlando." "Madison, did you pack ponchos for the rain? The afternoon thunderstorms are quite common." Madison laughed from the back seat. "Mom, relax. This is supposed to be magical. Besides, Naomi thought of everything. Didn't you, sis? She even bought those cooling towels for the kids." I had indeed bought cooling towels, athletic-grade ones that cost $30 each, designed to keep the children comfortable in Florida's oppressive humidity. They were currently packed in Madison's carry-on, along with the hundreds of dollars of Disney accessories I had purchased over the past 2 weeks to maintain my facade of enthusiasm. At the departure terminal, I pulled up to the curb and began the elaborate process of unloading. Madison's luggage alone consisted of 4 suitcases, 3 carry-ons, a stroller, and various bags of snacks and entertainment for the children. Mother had 2 suitcases and her precious cosmetics case. Father, ever practical, had a single bag and his newspaper. "Are you sure you can't come with us?" Madison asked for the 100th time, though her tone suggested she was perfectly happy with the arrangement. "I hate that you have to work while we're having fun." The lie I had told them was simple: a critical project at work that couldn't be postponed, a client emergency that required my attention. They had accepted it without question because it fit their narrative of responsible Naomi, always working, always sacrificing fun for duty. "Someone has to pay for all this magic," I said with a smile that they interpreted as resigned acceptance rather than anticipation. Mother hugged me briefly, the kind of perfunctory embrace that checked a box rather than conveying affection. "We'll send you pictures every day. You can experience it vicariously through the children." Vicariously. My entire life with this family had been vicarious, living through their experiences, funding their dreams, celebrating their achievements. But in exactly 4 hours, that would change forever. Madison was wrestling with the children, trying to organize the chaos of backpacks and tablets and stuffed animals. Her 7-year-old Emma ran over to me with the innocent affection that only children possess. "Aunt Naomi, I wish you were coming. Who's going to take pictures of me with the princesses?" I knelt down to her level, this sweet child who wasn't responsible for her mother's manipulations. "Your mom will take beautiful pictures, and you know what? I have a surprise that will arrive at your hotel tomorrow." I had indeed arranged a surprise, a Disney princess dress delivered directly to their room with a note saying it was from Aunt Naomi. It was my way of ensuring the children didn't suffer for the revelation that was coming. They were innocent in this dynamic, and I wouldn't punish them for their mother's behavior. Connor had texted earlier wishing everyone a safe flight. He and Rachel had conveniently scheduled a camping trip this week, off-grid and unreachable. I suspected he knew something was coming, his survival instinct keeping him clear of the blast radius. $3,000 for additional Disney expenses, Mother reminded me as they gathered at the terminal entrance. "I'll text you the details for the bank transfer. The character dining alone is $800. "Already handled," I assured her, which was true. I had transferred the money that morning, the last payment I would ever make to fund Madison's lifestyle. It was worth $3,000 to ensure they suspected nothing for the next 4 hours. Father finally spoke, adjusting his carry-on bag. "Drive safely, Naomi. No need to wait for our plane to leave. I'm sure you have work to do." Of course. Even in goodbye, I was dismissed, told my presence wasn't necessary once my usefulness had been exhausted. I watched them enter the terminal, Madison struggling with children and bags while mother supervised and father read his newspaper. They didn't look back, didn't wave, didn't give me a second thought once they passed through the automatic doors. I sat in my car for 5 minutes watching planes take off into the cloudy sky. Then I drove to the other terminal, the international departure section, and parked in long-term parking. My real journey was about to begin. The first-class check-in counter was a revelation. No lines, no hassle, just immediate service with genuine smiles. My upgrade had cost an additional $4,000 money that would have gone to Madison's inevitable Disney emergency, but worth every penny for this experience. "Miss Chen, we've been expecting you," the agent said warmly. "Your flight to Maui boards in 3 hours. You have access to our first-class lounge, complimentary spa services, and dining. Is there anything special you need for your journey? Being expected, being valued, being treated as important. These were foreign experiences. In my family, I was only expected to give valued only for my resources, important only when someone needed something. But here I was, a valued customer, a person worth treating well. The lounge was an oasis of calm luxury. I found a quiet corner with a view of the tarmac and settled in with champagne and my journal. It was time to craft the message that would shatter their Disney illusion. I scheduled the text to send in exactly 4 hours when their plane would be landing in Orlando, and they would be expecting my bank transfer for additional expenses. The message was simple, but comprehensive. By the time you read this, I'll be halfway to Hawaii on the trip I planned and paid for 8 months ago. You chose Disney, I chose myself. Your reservations are paid through the $3,000 I sent this morning. After that, you're on your own. I will be unreachable for the next month. This is not a negotiation or a discussion. This is notice that I'm done funding your choices at the expense of my dreams. The kid's princess dress will arrive tomorrow as promised. After that, please lose my number." I attached a photo I had just taken in the first-class lounge, champagne raised to the camera, my smile genuine for the first time in years. Then I scheduled it and turned off my regular phone, switching to the new one I had purchased. The only contacts in this phone were my therapist, my boss who had approved my leave, and surprisingly, a text from Connor. "I know what you're doing," his message read. "Good for you. Rachel and I support you completely. Enjoy your freedom." So he had known, or at least suspected. The camping trip wasn't coincidence, but protection, removing himself from the explosion while quietly supporting my escape. It was the first time in our adult lives he had chosen a side, and he had chosen mine. The flight boarding announcement interrupted my reflection. First-class passengers were invited to board at their leisure. No rushing, no fighting for overhead space, no anxiety about middle seats or crying babies. I walked down the jet bridge feeling like I was crossing into a new life. My seat was a pod of privacy and comfort, with a full-bed personal entertainment system and a menu that read like a fine restaurant. The flight attendant addressed me by name, offered pre-flight champagne, and asked if I had any special requests for the journey. "Just peace," I said honestly. "I'm looking for peace." She smiled as if she understood. "You'll find plenty of that in Hawaii, Miss Chen. It's the perfect place to restore your soul." As the plane pushed back from the gate, I knew my family's text would send in exactly 2 hours and 43 minutes. They would be collecting luggage, dealing with tired children, navigating the Orlando airport. Madison would be complaining about something, mother would be directing everyone, father would be silent. And then their phones would buzz simultaneously, and their Disney magic would take an unexpected turn. I ordered another champagne as we lifted off, watching the ground fall away beneath us. Somewhere down there, my family was living out their stolen vacation, blissfully unaware that their personal ATM had just closed permanently. They would survive, of course. They had survived before I started funding their lives, and they would figure it out again. Madison might actually have to budget, get a real job parent without a safety net. Mother might have to accept that her golden child wasn't so golden after all. Father might have to form an actual opinion instead of hiding behind his newspaper. Or they might not change at all. They might find another relative to manipulate, another source to tap. But it wouldn't be me. Never again would it be me. 4 hours into the flight, I turned on my old phone just long enough to see the explosion. 47 missed calls from Mother, 23 from Madison, 18 from Father, which must have been a record for him. The text messages were a study in escalation from confusion to anger, to threats to pleading. I didn't read them all, just enough to confirm they had received my message. Madison had already posted on Facebook something vague about family betrayal and protecting innocent children from toxic people. Mother had left a voicemail that began with, "How dare you," which I deleted after 3 seconds. Father had sent a single text, "This is unacceptable." Unacceptable. After years of accepting their treatment, their favoritism, their financial abuse, I had finally done something unacceptable. The irony was delicious. I turned the phone off permanently and handed it to the flight attendant. "Could you dispose of this for me? I won't be needing it anymore." She took it without question, probably used to first-class passengers making unusual requests. The phone disappeared into a trash bag, taking with it my last connection to the life I was leaving behind. The remainder of the flight was blissful. I slept in my full flat bed, ate gourmet meals, watched movies I had wanted to see for years but never had time. I journaled about my feelings, my hopes, my plans for the future. I started a list of things I wanted to do in Hawaii and Greece, experiences that were just for me, not filtered through anyone else's needs or wants. When the captain announced our descent into Maui, I was ready. Not just for the vacation, but for the life that came after. A life where my needs mattered, where my dreams were valid, where my money was my own. A life where I wasn't the supporting character in someone else's story, but the protagonist of my own. Day 5 in Hawaii, I finally felt brave enough to check my messages on my new phone. Connor had sent several updates acting as a buffer between me and the family explosion. His texts painted a picture of complete chaos that I read while sitting on my private balcony overlooking the Pacific Ocean. "Mom is cycling between rage and victim mode," his first message read. "She's telling everyone you had a mental breakdown. Madison is playing up the abandoned single mother angle. Dad actually spoke 3 full sentences, which might be a family record." The messages continued, each one more revealing than the last. Madison had apparently spent the entire Disney budget in 2 days and was now begging Connor to wire money. Mother had called every relative on both sides of the family, crafting a narrative where I was selfish, unstable, and possibly having a midlife crisis. The extended family had predictably taken sides, most siding with poor Madison and her innocent children. Connor's final message made me laugh out loud. "Madison had to get a job. Started yesterday at Target. Mom is babysitting the kids and losing her mind. Dad escaped to his golf club. You're a legend." I set down my phone and picked up my Mai Tai, toasting the sunset. The past 5 days had been everything I had dreamed and more. The presidential suite was a 2-bedroom palace of marble and mahogany with a private pool and butler service. I had used every amenity from the dawn yoga sessions to the midnight stargazing from my terrace. The helicopter tour had been breathtaking. Without Madison's children to worry about, or Mother's complaints about safety, I had chosen the doors-off photography tour. We flew over volcanic craters, through rainbow-filled valleys, along coastlines where whales breached in the distance. The pilot, learning I was celebrating my freedom, had made an extra pass over the most spectacular waterfall. The snorkeling expedition had become a private yacht adventure when I upgraded at the dock. The crew of 3 catered to my every need while I swam with sea turtles and spotted dolphins. They served fresh-caught fish for lunch, prepared exactly to my preferences, not compromised by Madison's fictional allergies or Mother's demanding specifications. Every meal was an adventure in flavor and presentation. I ate alone at the finest restaurants, savoring each bite without Madison's children throwing tantrums or Mother criticizing the prices. I ordered wine pairings, desserts, extra courses, whatever struck my fancy. The freedom to choose without committee approval or guilt was intoxicating. On day 3, I had booked an appointment with my therapist, Dr. Chen. The video session from my balcony with the ocean as backdrop felt symbolic. We discussed the family messages Connor had relayed, dissecting the manipulation tactics with clinical precision. "Notice how they haven't once asked if you're okay," she pointed out. "Every message is about their needs, their anger, their inconvenience. No concern for what drove you to this point." She was right. Not a single message included worry for my well-being or acknowledgement of their role in pushing me away. It was all demands, accusations, and attempts to guilt me back into compliance. The fact that Madison had to get a job isn't your responsibility, Dr. Chen continued. She's 29 years old with 3 children. The fact that your family enabled her helplessness doesn't obligate you to continue that pattern. We worked on scripts for eventual contact if I chose to reconnect, boundaries to establish consequences to enforce patterns to avoid. But most importantly, we worked on my guilt, the deeply ingrained programming that made me feel responsible for everyone else's happiness at the expense of my own. After the session, I had treated myself to a full day at the spa. 6 hours of treatments designed to pamper and restore. A volcanic mud wrap, a traditional Loma Lomi massage, a facial using local botanical ingredients. The staff treated me like royalty, addressing me by name, anticipating my needs, creating an atmosphere of complete relaxation. Between treatments, I sat in the spa's private garden, journaling about my transformation. The woman who had sat in her parents' living room 2 weeks ago accepting their theft seemed like a stranger. That woman was afraid of conflict, desperate for approval, willing to sacrifice everything for crumbs of affection. This woman, the one writing in a journal in paradise, was learning to value herself. On day 4, I had taken a sunrise hike to a sacred viewpoint, joining a small group of other solo travelers. We climbed in peaceful silence, reaching the summit just as the sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. Standing there surrounded by strangers who asked nothing of me, I felt more connected than I had at any family gathering. One of the hikers, a woman named Sarah from New York, shared her own story over breakfast after the hike. She had left an emotionally abusive marriage, lost most of her friends who sided with her ex, and started over at 50. Now 5 years later, she traveled the world, had a successful consulting business, and had never been happier. "The hardest part isn't leaving," she said, stirring her coffee. "It's not going back when they promise to change. Because they will promise, and for a moment you'll want to believe them." Her words proved prophetic when I finally decided to have a video call with Connor on day 5. He looked tired but amused, sitting in his home office while Rachel worked in the background. "You've become a family legend," he said without preamble. "Aunt Martha is calling you selfish, but Uncle Tony sent me a message saying he's proud of you. Apparently he's been watching this dynamic for years and wondered when you'd snap." I laughed, imagining our straight-laced Uncle Tony secretly rooting for my rebellion. "How bad is it really?" Connor's expression grew serious. "Madison is furious. She had to return most of the Disney souvenirs because she couldn't afford them. The kids are confused, but fine, honestly, probably better without all the material excess. Mom is the worst part. She's rewriting history, claiming you volunteered for everything, that they never asked for money, that you're being dramatic." The gaslighting was predictable but still stung. 32 years of financial support erased with convenient amnesia. But I had kept records, screenshots, bank statements. Not that I needed to prove anything to anyone. I knew the truth. "She wants you to call her," Connor added. "She has a script prepared I heard her practicing with Dad. It involves a lot of guilt about family loyalty and how hurt the children are." "The children have their princess dresses," I said firmly. "That's more than their father does for them." Connor nodded. "For what it's worth, Rachel and I are proud of you. We've been discussing our own boundaries with the family. Your exodus has inspired some overdue conversations." After ending the call with Connor, I sat on my balcony watching surfers navigate the waves below. My old phone was somewhere in a landfill, along with the person who would have already been packing to go home to apologize to resume funding Madison's learned helplessness. But that person was as disposed of as the phone. Tomorrow I would fly to Athens, then on to Santorini for 2 more weeks of discovery. I had booked a photography tour to capture the famous sunsets, a cooking class to learn traditional Greek cuisine, a wine-tasting journey through ancient vineyards. Every experience was chosen by me for me, without consideration for anyone else's preferences or limitations. My money, which had been hemorrhaging toward Madison for years, was now building my future. I had already researched investment properties in places I loved, calculated how much I could save without the constant family emergencies, planned trips for the next year that would fulfill decades of suppressed dreams. The sun was setting now, painting the ocean in shades of orange and purple that no camera could capture. I raised my glass to the horizon, toasting my freedom, my courage, my refusal to remain the family sacrifice. Somewhere in Orlando, Madison was probably struggling with bedtime routines without my help. Mother was probably crafting new manipulation tactics. Father was probably hiding behind his newspaper. But here in paradise, I was finally authentically, unapologetically myself. And I was never going back to being anything less. The transformation from Hawaii to Greece was like stepping from one dream into another. After 2 weeks of tropical paradise, I found myself on a terrace in Santorini, watching the sun set over the caldera, while sipping local wine that cost more than Madison used to spend on groceries with my money. The cave hotel I had booked was carved into the cliffside with a private infinity pool that seemed to merge with the Aegean Sea. I had been in Greece for 3 days when I decided to check Connor's updates again. His messages painted a picture of escalating family drama that read like a soap opera plot. Madison got fired from Target for calling in sick 3 times in her first 2 weeks, he wrote. Mom is threatening to cut her off, but we both know that won't happen. Dad actually suggested Madison should apologize to you. Mom shut that down immediately. Another message followed. They found out you're in Greece through your Instagram. Madison is now claiming you stole money from the family vacation fund. Mom is supporting this narrative. I had indeed been posting on Instagram my account that family was blocked from, but mutual acquaintances weren't. Photos of spectacular sunsets, traditional Greek meals, archaeological sites I had dreamed of visiting since college. Each post was a declaration of independence, a visual memoir of my transformation. On my 4th day in Santorini, I met Andreas, a local tour guide who would become an unexpected friend. He was leading a small group wine tour through the volcanic soil vineyards, explaining how the unique terroir created distinctive flavors. When he learned I was traveling solo, he asked the question everyone seemed to ask. By choice or by circumstance? By liberation, I replied, which made him laugh. During the tour, I found myself sharing an abbreviated version of my story with the group. There was a couple from Germany who nodded knowingly, a solo traveler from Japan who raised her glass in solidarity, and an older British woman who said simply, "Good on you, love." Andreas approached me after the tour. "I have a similar story," he said in accented English. "My family expected me to take over the restaurant business, support my siblings, never leave the island. One day I left for Athens, studied tourism, came back on my own terms. Now I see them when I choose help, when I want live how I decide." We spent the evening walking through Oya, the famous village with blue-domed churches and narrow marble streets. He showed me hidden spots away from tourists' local tavernas where grandmothers still cooked traditional recipes, viewpoints where locals watched sunsets without crowds. "The hardest part," Andreas said over dinner at one of these hidden gems, "is not the leaving. It's the staying gone when everyone expects you to return to your old role." His words resonated deeply. I had been gone 3 weeks now, and the family pressure was intensifying. Connor reported that Mother had called a family meeting to discuss my abandonment and potential interventions. Madison had started a GoFundMe claiming she was a struggling single mother abandoned by family, though Connor said it had raised less than $100. "They're planning to ambush you when you return," Connor warned in a voice message. "Mom has everyone's flight schedules coordinated to arrive the day after you get back. She got your return date from the airline somehow." The old me would have panicked, changed flights, prepared for battle. The new me simply extended my stay another week and booked a return flight to a different city. I would deal with my apartment remotely, hire movers, start fresh somewhere they couldn't ambush me. Dr. Chen and I had another session while I sat by my private pool, the blue and white architecture of Santorini, creating a surreal therapy backdrop. We discussed the family's escalation tactics, their inability to accept my boundaries, and my growing confidence in maintaining distance. "You're grieving," she observed. "Not the family you're leaving, but the family you wished you had. The parents who would celebrate your success, the sister who would respect your boundaries, the brother who would openly support you. It's important to mourn those imaginary relationships." She was right. Each sunset in Greece, each moment of solo peace was tinged with sadness for what never was. But there was also celebration for what could be now that I wasn't pouring myself into a bottomless pit of need. Andreas introduced me to his friend circle locals, who had also broken from traditional expectations. There was Maria, who left an arranged engagement to become a chef in Athens. Nikos, who chose art over the family shipping business. Elena, who scandalized her family by divorcing and traveling the world. We spent evenings discussing family freedom and the price of authenticity. You Americans think guilt is Catholic or Jewish. Elena laughed over wine one night. You haven't met Greek mother guilt. It's an Olympic sport here. Their stories made me feel less alone, less abnormal. All over the world, people were breaking free from toxic family dynamics, choosing themselves over obligation, creating lives of intention rather than expectation. On my 10th day in Greece, I took a sailing trip to lesser-known islands. The captain, learning I was celebrating freedom, opened special vintage wines anchored in hidden coves, shared stories of his own escape from family pressure to become a doctor. We swam in crystal waters, ate fresh caught fish grilled on the boat, watched dolphins play in our wake. That evening, anchored in a quiet bay, I finally listened to one voicemail from Mother. Her voice was different, less commanding, and more desperate. Naomi, this has gone on long enough. Your sister needs you. The children need you. I need you. Whatever we did, we're sorry. Just come home and we can work this out. We're family. That has to mean something. It did mean something. It meant 32 years of being unseen, unheard, unvalued, except for what I could provide. It meant every achievement dismissed, every boundary violated, every dream deferred for Madison's convenience. Family meant something, just not what she thought it did. I deleted the voicemail and blocked the number. Then I called my landlord in the States, gave notice on my apartment, and hired a company to pack and store my belongings. I contacted my boss, negotiated a permanent remote position, and started researching cities where I wanted to live. Portland, Austin, Denver, places with vibrant communities and no family connections. That night, I posted a photo on Instagram of the sunset from the boat captioned simply, "Building a life of intention, not obligation." Within hours, it had more likes than anything I had ever posted. Messages poured in from acquaintances, old friends, even strangers who had found my journey inspiring. One message stood out from a cousin I barely knew who lived in Seattle. "I've watched your family drain you for years. Good for you for finally choosing yourself. If you ever need a place to stay while you figure things out, my guest room is yours." The kindness of distant relations and strangers contrasted sharply with the manipulation of immediate family. It reinforced that family was about behavior, not blood, about respect, not relation. My last week in Greece was spent island hopping, each destination chosen spontaneously based on morning mood. Mykonos for beach clubs and dancing, Crete for archaeological wonders, Rhodes for medieval history. Each island offered new perspectives, new experiences, new versions of myself I was discovering. On my final night, Andreas and his friends threw an impromptu farewell party at a local taverna. We danced to traditional music, broke plates for good luck, toasted to freedom and courage. Elena pulled me aside near midnight, pressing a small, evil eye charm into my hand. "For protection," she said. "Not from evil, but from guilt. Guilt is the real evil eye that makes us return to toxic situations." As my plane lifted off from Athens, beginning the journey to my new life, I held that charm and thought about the month that had changed everything. I had spent approximately $15,000 on this journey of liberation, less than what I had given Madison in a typical year. But this money had bought me something priceless, the knowledge that I could exist, thrive, and find joy without my family's approval or involvement. Connor had sent one final update. The family had arrived at my apartment to find it empty, my landlord informing them I had moved out. The meltdown had been epic, with Mother actually calling the police to report me missing, despite Connor showing them my Instagram posts. Madison had told the children that Aunt Naomi didn't love them anymore, a manipulation that hurt but didn't surprise me. But there was also unexpected support. Connor's wife Rachel had finally spoken up, telling Mother that she had watched me be emotionally and financially abused for years. Uncle Tony had called Madison a parasite to her face. Even Father had said that perhaps the family should have appreciated me more when they had the chance. Too little, too late, but still validating to know others had seen what I had experienced. 6 months after my escape, I was settled in Portland, Oregon, a city chosen for its creative community, distance from family, and complete lack of connections to my past life. My apartment overlooked the river filled with art. I had chosen furniture that reflected my taste, and not a single photo of the family that had driven me away. The intervening months had been a journey of continued growth and occasional setbacks. There were days when the guilt felt overwhelming, when Mother's voice in my head questioned every decision. But therapy continued, boundaries held, and each day became easier than the last. Connor had become my only family connection, our relationship evolving from neutral observer to actual sibling. He visited Portland with Rachel their first vacation without informing the family. Over coffee and walks through Forest Park, we discussed childhood trauma and the different ways we had survived the same dysfunction. I escaped through distance and selective engagement, he admitted. But you were trapped as the responsible daughter. I should have spoken up sooner. Rachel had been even more direct. We've started therapy because of what you did. Watching you break free made us realize how enmeshed we still were despite the physical distance. You saved us years of continued dysfunction. The family updates came sporadically through Connor. Madison had gotten another job, lost, it gotten another. She had started dating someone new who Mother disapproved of, but who apparently expected Madison to contribute financially to the relationship. The shock of equality was apparently overwhelming for her. Mother had redirected her energy toward the extended family, trying to establish the same dynamics with cousins and their children. But word of my exodus had spread, inspiring others to establish boundaries. The family matriarch was finding fewer willing subjects for her manipulation. Father had surprised everyone by taking a solo golf trip, his first independent decision in decades. He sent Connor a message saying he understood why I left, though he still wouldn't confront Mother directly. It was progress, even if insufficient. My new life in Portland was everything I had dreamed. I joined a hiking group that explored the Columbia River Gorge every weekend. I took art classes at the community college, rediscovering a passion abandoned in high school when Madison needed tutoring that consumed my free time. I volunteered at a women's shelter, helping others escape toxic situations. Dating was a revelation. Without family interference, judgment, or Madison needing emergency babysitting, I could actually explore relationships. I met Thomas at a bookstore event, a fellow remote worker who understood boundaries because he had established his own with alcoholic parents. We took things slowly, both of us carrying baggage but working through it with intention and therapy. Work flourished without the constant stress of family drama. My creativity, no longer stifled by emotional exhaustion, produced campaigns that won awards. My boss promoted me to senior creative director, a position that came with a 40% raise I didn't have to justify or share with anyone. The money I saved by not funding Madison's life was staggering. In 6 months, I had saved more than in the previous 5 years. I started investment accounts, contributed to retirement, even bought some cryptocurrency just for fun. The financial advisor I hired was shocked when I explained how much I had been giving away annually. You were basically supporting 2 households on one income, she said, reviewing my past expenses. No wonder you couldn't save. You're lucky you broke free when you did. Lucky. It didn't feel like luck. It felt like salvation earned through painful recognition and difficult choices. One random Tuesday, my new phone rang with an unknown number. Against better judgment, I answered. It was Madison calling from someone else's phone. Naomi? Her voice was smaller than I remembered, lacking its usual manipulative confidence. Please don't hang up. I almost did, but curiosity won. You have 2 minutes. I got your number from Connor. I'm sorry, that's not why I'm calling. Actually, yes it is. I'm calling to say I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not sorry you left, but sorry for what I did to make you leave. I said nothing, letting her fill the silence. Mom won't admit it, but we destroyed something. You were always there and we treated you like furniture. Reliable, useful furniture that we could use however we wanted. I'm in therapy now, the state required it for assistance, and my therapist made me see what we did to you. What do you want, Madison? I asked, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Nothing, that's the point. I'm calling wanting nothing from you for the first time in my life. I just wanted to say I understand why you left. And I'm trying to change. I have a job at a dental office. I'm keeping it. I'm budgeting. I'm being a mom without expecting rescue. It's hard, but I'm doing it. The call ended shortly after with no promises to reconnect, no requests for forgiveness, just an acknowledgement of reality. It was more than I had expected, though, far from enough to rebuild bridges burned by decades of exploitation. A year after my escape, I returned to the East Coast for a wedding of a college friend. I didn't inform family I would be within driving distance, but somehow Mother found out, probably through social media sleuthing, and appeared at the hotel venue. She looked older, smaller, less intimidating than the matriarch who had ruled my life. She approached during cocktail hour when I was surrounded by friends who knew my story. "Naomi," she began, but I raised my hand to stop her. "Patricia," I said, using her first name to establish new dynamics. "This is neither the time nor the place. If you want to have a conversation, you can email me to schedule a video call, but you will not ambush me at someone else's event." The shock on her face was profound. No one had ever spoken to her with such calm authority. She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and left. My friends applauded quietly, having witnessed the boundary in action. She never sent that email. 2 years after my escape, I stood on a beach in Thailand, my third solo international trip since Greece. I had just received a photo from Connor of Madison's son at his birthday party. She had apparently saved and planned for months to give him a modest but meaningful celebration without requesting family funding. It was progress. Connor himself had established boundaries, refusing to host Christmas unless everyone contributed equally to cost and effort. The family had splintered into smaller, healthier units, each finding their own way without the toxic central dynamics that had defined us for decades. I had published an article about family financial abuse that went viral, leading to speaking engagements and a book deal. The irony of making money from breaking free from family money drainage wasn't lost on me. But if my story helped others recognize their own exploitation, it was worth the exposure. Thomas and I had moved in together, creating a home built on equality and respect. He had met Connor and Rachel, but understood my boundaries with the rest of the family. We had plans to travel to New Zealand next month, a trip I could afford because my money was finally my own. My therapist and I had reduced sessions to monthly check-ins, a sign of how far I had come. The guilt still surfaced occasionally, usually around holidays, or when I saw happy families that reminded me of what I had wished for, but never had. But it no longer controlled me. "You've integrated the experience," Dr. Chen observed during our last session. "It's part of your story, but not your identity. You're not defined by being the family scapegoat anymore. You're defined by being someone who chose themselves." As I stood on that Thai beach watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors, I thought about the woman on the plane to Hawaii 3 years ago. She had been terrified but determined, heartbroken but hopeful. She had taken the first step toward this moment, this life, this freedom. My phone buzzed with a message from a stranger who had read my article. "Thank you for sharing your story. I'm on a plane right now, leaving my toxic family behind. You gave me permission to choose myself." I smiled, remembering Sarah from Hawaii, who had told me the same thing about someone else's story inspiring her escape. We were all connected, an invisible network of people who had chosen ourselves over obligation, freedom over manipulation, authentic lives over assigned roles. The sun dipped below the horizon, and I raised my coconut water in a toast to everyone still trapped, still fighting, still hoping. May they find their moment of clarity, their grace, their freedom. May they discover, as I had, that family is about behavior, not blood, and that the greatest gift you can give yourself is permission to leave tables where you're not valued, even if those tables are set by people who share your DNA. Have you ever felt trapped by family obligations that drain your emotional and financial resources? What would it take for you to choose yourself over family expectations? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more stories about breaking free from toxic dynamics. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to stop funding other people's lives at the expense of your own dreams. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, you don't owe anyone your life savings, your dreams, or your happiness just because they're family. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for everyone, including yourself, is to stop enabling dysfunction and start living authentically. Your worth isn't measured by what you sacrifice for others, but by how fully you honor your own path.